Xian and his older sister, Marie, are the children of a low-ranking noble family that governs their region. After receiving conflicting messages from their father, Xian and Marie set off on an adventure to uncover the mysteries of magic. A sweet little girl named Marie waits eagerly in front of her house, watching a carriage approach. Excited, she runs to welcome her parents. Her parents are delighted to see her doing well and ask if she felt lonely while they were away. Marie assures them she didn't, as Rose kept her company, and promises she behaved very well. Her mother kneels down so Marie can meet her new baby brother, Xian, a lively and smiling infant. Marie thinks he's adorable and gives him a kiss on the cheek, leaving Xian frozen in surprise. 3 years later, Marie is racing Xian, but the boy can't keep up with her. The door opens and Marie runs to greet her father. Xian wonders how his sister can have so much energy. Their father is pleased to see his cheerful daughter. Marie remarks that she's as bright as the sun, just like her hair. Her father agrees. Xian approaches to greet his father, who immediately notices how mature his son is. The boy mentions that Marie is far more mature than he is, and Marie agrees, saying it's only natural since she's the elder sibling. But she knows her father is right. Xian is very mature for his age. He always helps their mother, no longer wets the bed, and sometimes has an expression as serious as an adult's. However, once she found him playing behind the house, pretending to cast spells. Despite his maturity, deep down, he still plays with his imagination like any child would. That night, during dinner, Xian asks his father a question. Do monsters exist? His father immediately replies that they do. They're outside the house, which is why they must never leave, as they're very dangerous. If they ever see one, they must flee immediately and seek help from an adult. Xian then asks about the existence of fairies and spirits. His father replies that he's unsure about spirits, but fairies do exist, though they are rare and unlikely to be encountered. Then, excitedly, Xian asks if magic exists. He becomes disheartened when his father says magic doesn't exist and that he's never even heard of the word. Xian wonders if his father might simply not know what magic truly is. His father admits there are things he doesn't know, but insists that he's well educated and is confident that common people know nothing about this so-called magic. He asks Xian where he got the idea. Marie intervenes, asking her brother if he feels alright, noting how pale he looks. Xian, in a very somber tone, assures her he's fine. From that day on, Xian never mentioned magic again. 3 years later, Marie trains with a wooden sword while Xian reads a book. After some time, Marie takes a break and sits next to her brother. Xian asks why she trains so much. She replies that as his older sister, it's her duty to train to protect him in case something happens. Xian doesn't understand what could happen, so she explains that if a monster or villain were to appear, she'd be able to defend him. Xian doesn't see how that relates to being the eldest, and she tells him that it's her responsibility to protect him, which requires her to be strong. Though her training is tiring, she doesn't dislike it because physical activities are her specialty. That night, Marie continues her training by a lake, where her friend Rose watches in amazement at how she never seems to get bored of doing the same thing. Marie asks Rose to spar with her, but Rose refuses, saying she's too tired from working with her grandfather all day. She asks if Xian is still holed up studying. Marie says he is, and Rose marvels at how different they are despite being siblings. Marie knows the reason Xian studies so much is because he wants to learn more about magic, even though he hasn't mentioned it in the past 3 years. At that moment, the lake begins to glow before their eyes. The next morning, Marie guides her brother to the lake, despite his reminder that their mother forbids them from going so far from home. Marie assures him it's worth the risk. They sit by the lake as lights begin to rise from the water and ascend into the sky. It seems to happen at every sunset, but Marie doesn't know why. Xian asks if their parents know about it. Marie says they do, as she showed them when she discovered it, but it seems they couldn't see the lights. She wanted to see if Xian could. Xian guesses that adults might not be able to see them, but Marie explains that some children can't either, and everyone seems to perceive them differently. She sees them flickering, while others describe them as continuous light. Marie says it seems like magic, based on what her brother said 3 years ago. Xian is surprised she remembers. Marie assures him she has a good memory, especially when it comes to her little brother, adding that he hasn't been the same since then. Xian's eyes fill with tears, touched by his sister's attention. After the spectacle, they decide to head home, with Xian now seeming more cheerful than usual. The next day, the children hurried through breakfast to get to the lake, this time bringing 3 wooden buckets and a fishing rod. Xian wanted to discover what those lights were and where they came from. Marie thought the lights came from the lake itself, but Xian believed they might come from a creature living in it. Marie didn't entirely understand what Xian was trying to do, but trusted his intelligence and was willing to follow his lead. Xian explained their plan. They would first fill the buckets with water. Then, one would hold rocks and sand, another aquatic plants, and the last fish. The first two tasks were completed quickly, but for the third, they couldn't catch anything. Even so, Xian was enjoying the moment with his sister and thanked her for helping him with everything. She replied that it was her duty as the older sister and that she also found it fascinating. If there really was magic in the lake, she wanted to see it too. Both were excited. The idea of finding magic thrilled them. Finally, a fish took the bait. They reeled it in and placed it in the third bucket. It was an Etten trout, a very common fish. Rose arrived at the scene, surprised to find them there. Marie introduced her brother to Rose. Rose introduced herself as a lonely flower blooming in this desolate village, but Marie explained that she was just an ordinary farm girl trying to act interesting. Rose asked what they were doing. Marie said they were fishing, but Rose found it odd they were doing so in that specific lake. She asked Xian if he too could see the lights. Xian confirmed he could. Rose remarked that the lights were strange and fascinating, which was why she occasionally came to see them. Xian excitedly started asking if she knew anything about the lights, but Rose said she only observed them without much thought. At sunset, the spectacle began, but the buckets of water didn't emit any light. Xian had tried to replicate the lake's elements separately, but it didn't work. He asked his sister if there were more creatures in the lake besides Etten trout. Marie said there were, and Rose noted it would be very difficult to gather them all. With no other choice, Xian decided to strip down and enter the lake. His sister tried to stop him, warning it could be dangerous, but Xian didn't listen. Marie joined him to keep an eye on him. Xian placed his hand on one of the lights, feeling a warm, pleasant sensation. Marie tried it and found it very hot, like a bath. Xian submerged his face in the water, but it was too murky to see anything. Still, he deduced that the lights were being released by some aquatic creature, likely the fish. It had to be something that moved, ruling out the plants. Marie asked how he figured that out, and Xian explained that the location of the lights varied, though he still didn't know what kind of animal it was. Marie lamented not being able to see better underwater. They left the lake, and Xian thanked his sister for her support and company. She told him it was unnecessary since they were family. Xian understood, but still thought gratitude and telling her he loved her were important. Marie agreed and allowed him to say whatever he wanted. Rose approached them, showing off a female Etten trout she had caught. Marie was surprised, as female trout were much harder to catch since they usually stayed at the river's bottom. She guessed it was mating season, which brought them closer to the surface. They placed the trout in the third bucket, and immediately the water began to emit light. Xian finally understood it was all part of their courtship ritual. Marie didn't understand what a courtship ritual was, so Rose explained it was when a male trout met a female trout, liked her very, very much, and decided to get married. Marie grasped the concept, but thought she and Xian didn't need such a ritual since she was a girl and he was a boy. She said she hoped to one day lay her eggs and have Xian handle the rest. Xian explained that siblings couldn't marry. Marie asked if he didn't love her, and he said he did, but that wasn't the issue. The next day, Marie approached her brother, upset because their mother had scolded her. She had told her mother she wanted to marry Xian when they grew up, and her mother had told her the same thing Xian had. Marie didn't understand why what she said was so bad when all she wanted was to be with her brother forever. Xian told her he felt the same way, but they didn't need to get married to achieve that. Marie argued that marriage was something special, and if they didn't marry each other, they'd marry someone else and stop being together. Xian promised he wouldn't marry and would always stay by her side. Marie warned that his decision might upset their father, but Xian was willing to adopt the child to provide an heir. He knew he was just a child, but he was determined to stay with her forever and made her that promise. Marie said those words carried more weight than marriage, but Xian didn't mind because he truly loved his sister. He hugged her, assuring her he would always be by her side. Marie hugged him back, and at that moment, Xian began to emit a light similar to that of the lake. Xian believed it might be magical energy that had unconsciously imprinted on him from spending so much time watching the lights. It had likely been activated because of the special moment they had just shared. Xian now knew magical energy existed, and if magic didn't exist, it was because no one had invented it yet. He resolved to create magic in this new world he had been reborn into. We see a man in the middle of his room, the only light coming from his phone screen. Anxiously, he waits for midnight. As the clock strikes the hour, he starts celebrating. Convinced that when a man reaches 30 as a virgin, he awakens magical powers. He tries casting various spells, but all he achieves is making us cringe. He even uses a notebook filled with spells he wrote down, yet nothing happens. Disheartened and disappointed, the man accepts that magic doesn't exist and that he lives in an ordinary world. Just as he's about to go to sleep, he begins having a heart attack. Throughout his life, he held on to the hope that one day he could use magic, even knowing it was impossible. His body transforms and shrinks, turning into Shion. Reborn in a new world, he continues studying in search of magic. When he asks his father about it, he's told that such nonsense doesn't exist. Once again, Shion feels he's lost his reason to live. Until a few days ago, when he made great progress in his research. He tries casting a fireball once more, but doesn't manage even a spark. He decides to start with the basics, hoping to find something resembling magic. Marie bursts into his room, and Shion asks her to knock before entering. Marie accuses him of doing something indecent. Shion denies it, but admits to himself that someday he probably will. There's no television in this world, and he'll need some form of entertainment. Shion asks her to sit next to him and confesses his love for her. Suddenly, Shion begins glowing. Apparently, expressing his feelings unleashes a bit of his power. Shion wonders if he has to keep saying it repeatedly to activate his magic fully, though he knows that's absurd. Marie is furious at being used as part of an experiment. Shion tries to explain his motives, but Marie thinks he was just lying to her. He assures her that even though it was a test, his feelings for her are real. Marie believes him and feels flattered, asking if his experiment at least worked. Shion admits that confessing wasn't enough and now wants to test something else. He theorizes that strong emotions might serve as triggers at least. That's what he read in his past life. Focusing intently, he manages to make himself glow without disturbing his sister. Marie congratulates him, though Shion knows his power remains useless as it merely makes him faintly glow. Maybe it'll come in handy in dark places. Still, he's convinced that what he's doing defies explanation, so he decides to call it magic. To cut animation costs, it's explained through a simple cartoon that this phenomenon resembles what electric eels do. They can perceive electric fields and generate electricity thanks to a special organ in their bodies. Shion theorizes that people in this world might have a similar organ, enabling them to sense and generate magic through emotions. Shion names the conscious ability to emit magical energy conscious charge state, but we'll just call it candle mode. Excited about the idea of wielding magic, Shion makes a pervy old man face, laughing like a lunatic. His sister watches, thinking, "What's wrong with this guy? Are we really related?" But she's glad to see him happy. Shion spends the next month practicing his candle mode and learns several things, again explained through low-budget cartoons. The first, to enter the mode, he needs an intense emotion that accelerates his heartbeat, and maintaining it is very difficult. The second, there's a limit to how many times he can enter this state. If he exceeds it, he goes from candle mode to sleepy mode. The third, emitting magic near his limit increases his magical capacity. The fourth, candle mode is like magical lake orbs. People without magical aptitude can't see it, making its only practical use in a dark room pointless. However, those who can see it can also feel warmth from it, so it might work as a heater on cold days. And the fifth, he still can't produce light orbs, but he's determined to shoot something from his hands. He wonders if there's a limit to the magic he can emit, or if his power is just too weak for anything beyond making his body glow. Realizing that if a fish can emit light orbs, he might have less magic than a trout, Shion wonders if magic works like in video games, where you can increase your magic points. But since he doesn't understand it himself, he decides to stop thinking about it. He knows his quest is finally yielding results, and giving up would mean accepting that his magic is only good for two things: entertaining at kids' parties and dressing up as a firefly. Thinks of trout again and gets an idea. Shion enters candle mode once more, attempting to concentrate all his magical power into his hand. But he fails. Realizing that focusing on something that makes him happy is an emotional act, while focusing on his arm is logical thinking, he sees the contradiction. He figures he might need to combine the thoughts, so he focuses on imagining that gathering magic in his right hand would bring him happiness. Re-entering candle mode, his hand glows noticeably brighter. Overcome by excitement, Shion decides to test it by punching a wall only to nearly break his hand like a fool. After spending the entire chapter trying to shoot light balls, Now that he has magic in his hand, he punches a wall. He expected to gain some kind of destructive power, but it turns out to be just a simple glow. Still, he's happy with his progress, and once again laughs like a lunatic. Shion names this new state Magical Accumulation State, but we'll call it Glow Stick Mode. Shion spends the rest of the day practicing in glow stick mode. In the afternoon, his father calls him, his sister Marie, and Rose for sword training. It's the first time Shion and Rose join the class. Their father warns them to take the training seriously, as even wooden swords can cause injuries. Shion tries to get out of the class, explaining he has no intention of fighting anyone. But his father reminds him that sword training isn't just for fighting people, the world is full of monsters. Rose agrees that learning self-defense is important, and Marie encourages her brother to give it his best. Shion reluctantly agrees, though deep down he wishes he could return to his room and continue practicing his glowing magic. After some training, Shion collapses from exhaustion. His father looks at him with disappointment over his lack of stamina, but praises Rose for her excellent performance, confident that she could become a great swordswoman. When it's Marie's turn, she's determined to show her strength. She charges toward her father, pretending to attack. He blocks her move, but Marie shifts the attack downward at the last moment. Her father dodges and taps her head with a sword, winning the match. He points out that her movements are too wide, making them easy to avoid, but he appreciates her attempt at a surprise move and suggests continued training, believing she has the potential to become a great swordswoman. I wonder if he says that to everyone. Shion thinks as he returns to his room to continue practicing glowstick mode, but he makes no further progress. At least his limit has increased. He can now use the mode around 20 times. However, he can't maximize it as he initially did. He considers changing his training method. Someone knocks on the door. It's his father asking if he was doing something indecent. Shion denies it and asks what he wants. His father invites him on a trip to Astoria, the nearest city to their home. Shion agrees and joins the family. His father explains that they'll shop and then visit the blacksmith, warning them not to wander off or risk getting lost. Shion, hoping to search for magical items, thinks, then why bring me along? But remembers he's still a kid and shouldn't wander off. After shopping, the kids wait outside the store. Marie suddenly starts laughing, and Shion asks what's so funny. She brushes it off, saying she just remembered a joke and avoids the question. They finish their shopping and head to the blacksmith, which excites Marie. The blacksmith, Grast, recognizes their father as a regular customer. Their father asks if the order is ready, and Grast replies enthusiastically that the sword for Marie turned out great. Grast greets the children, who introduce themselves politely. Surprised, Grast jokes, "Wow, you don't seem like his kids." Their father warns, "Keep the jokes up and I'll break your nose." Grast laughs it off and fetches the sword. He returns with a small, lightweight child sword, decorated to look appealing. Marie draws it and is delighted by her new gift. As they head back to the cart, Marie teases her brother. "What did they get you?" "Oh yeah, nothing." Shion reminds her that it's her birthday and that he doesn't even like swords. Marie suggests he should be more demanding, but Shion is content having her join him in his projects. They pass a shop that catches Shion's attention, and he asks his father about it. His father sternly replies that he doesn't need to know about that place. Still, Shion catches a glimpse of the sign, Fairy Sale. If you've made it this far into the video, don't forget to write the word Exquisito in the comment section. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video.